In my first episode of this tutorial, we learned what is project costing. In my second episode, we learned how to set up project costing in PeopleSoft. And in today's episode, we are going to connect dots on what we learned so far. We will go through step by step the core business process of project costing. By the way, my name is Siva Koya. I'm your host today. Without any delay, let's jump into today's episode. Let's take a step back and understand what we have done so far in this tutorial. We will relate entering project costs on an Excel with our PeopleSoft Project Costing Module. First, we created a project with a start and end date. Then we added tasks or activities that we plan to perform as part of our project with their start and end dates. After that, we have assigned a resource to our project activity. Then we defined hourly rate for our resource. In simple terms, cost rate is how much our company pays our resource to perform the task. On the other hand, bill rate is how much we charge our end customer for the work done by our resource. Finally, we added revenue budget and cost budget. What is the difference between revenue budget and cost budget? Revenue budget is nothing but the estimated amount of money we plan to collect from our end customer. Cost budget is nothing but how much money it costs our company to execute the project. In this venture, our company is estimating a profit of 20K if everything goes as planned, because we are expecting a revenue of 120K from our end customer and it costs 100K for our company to execute the project. This is what we have done so far in this tutorial. Let's pick it up from here and continue with the next steps in this episode. Before getting our hands dirty, let me walk you through the steps that we are going to perform as part of this exercise. By now, you would have understood entering transactions manually is not an optimal way of loading project transactions into PeopleSoft Project Costing Module. The most popular way of loading project transactions into PeopleSoft Project Costing Module is through integration. Through integration, data gets loaded into intfc_proj_rest table. Then we will run load transactions process, which validates the data loaded into our interface tables. Also, load transactions process internally calls PC_pricing process, which calculates the total actual cost based on the rate setup and inserts the data into proj_resource table. We will also try the manual option of entering project transactions in our project costing module. Once we submit our transaction, system internally calls PC pricing process as well. Once PC pricing process calculates the resource amount and updates proj resource table, we can now run async revenue process, which inserts the data into general staging table CA_accounting_line_PC table. Once we kick off general generator process with edit and post option, the total revenue related to our project is updated in our ledger table. There you have it, guys. These are the steps we are going to perform in the next few minutes. As we know, our resource Thomas spent 5 hours on our upgrade project. Ideally, this information should flow into PeopleSoft Project Costing from some third-party application where we enter timesheets. Since I don't have any integration in my environment, I'm going to manually insert data related to those hours into intfc_proj_rest table using a direct SQL insert statement. These are the values I'm inserting. This is my project ID. This is my activity ID. This is my project transaction date. This is the employee ID of our resource Thomas. Here I input the number of hours he spent on this project. That's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and insert this data into our interface table. One row is successfully inserted. Let me commit the data. If I query the table data, you can see this is the critical information that I inserted. I forgot to mention about analysis type when I inserted the data. Analysis type TLX represents employee timesheet data. If you would have noticed, I have inserted resource amount as 0 because resource amount calculation setup is within project costing and it will be calculated by pricing process down the road. For now, let's move on to the next step. In my next step, I'm going to run load project transactions process, which internally kicks off PC pricing process, which creates a bill row for our transaction as well as a actual cost row and insert into proj resource table. Let's go ahead and check it out. In order to run load transactions process, I will navigate to project costing, third-party integration, third-party load transactions. Let me add a new run control. I will go ahead and add some filters to choose our specific transaction. I'll go ahead and click on run button and kick off the process. As you can see, one row was successfully processed without any error, and that row is successfully loaded into proj_resource table. Let me quickly head back to my SQL developer. I will query the data in proj resource table for my project ID. If you noticed closely, pricing process created 2 additional lines by keeping the original transaction line as is. One is a bill row and other is actual cost row. You can relate these 2 lines to 2 columns on our Excel. If you are curious how our pricing process generated these 2 additional lines, we have to revisit our setup. I am on contracts terms page that we configured in our previous episode. This is our contract and we associated our upgrade project with this specific contract. As part of this upgrade project contract, we assigned this specific rate set. This rate set guides how we should bill our end customer. Let me open it. I will navigate to Target tab. Based on this configuration, we are telling the pricing process whenever you see an incoming transaction with TLX as analysis type, create 2 target rows, one for bill and one for actual cost. And those are the lines we saw before. And how do you calculate the resource amount for the bill row? We have specified employee billing rate. If we saw before, our employee billing rate is 200. So 5 into 200, which is $1,000 that we plan to bill our end customer. Likewise, what should be the resource amount for actual cost row? It should be employee cost rate. If we take a look at our setup, employee cost rate is 150, 5 into 150, $750. That's what was populated for actual cost row. I hope you got some idea. In our next step, we are going to manually enter an expense through PeopleSoft Project Costing. For that, the analysis type is ACT. We are asking pricing process to create one additional row, which is bill. Rate option is set to none, which means whatever the amount that is specified on the source system or on transaction line, and that's how resource amount will be populated. Now I'll show you how to enter one project transaction manually into PeopleSoft Project Costing Module and process it. In order to enter project transactions manually, I'll navigate to Project Costing, Transaction Definitions, Add Transactions. I will search for our project and select the activity for which we need to enter our transaction. I will select the analysis type as actual cost, source type travel expense. I will select software as a category. Will specify quantity as 1. And this is to claim $500 as travel expense for our resource. I'll click on details. I'll give a description and process our transaction. In the background, a batch process was kicked off and PC wrapper internally calls PC pricing process and the process ran to success. Based on our rate set configuration, for incoming transaction with analysis type of ACT, we are expecting pricing process should create one bill row and the rate should be whatever specified on our transaction, which is $500. Let me query our proj resource table. I will run the query. As expected, one additional bill row was created for $500. By the way, I forgot to mention all these bill rows can be leveraged by PeopleSoft billing module to create bill for our end customer. I will cover this billing business flow in another episode. Now that we process two transactions, one is hours spent by our resource on this project as well as travel expenses. We just processed these transactions in our PeopleSoft Project Costing Module. If you notice closely, on this Excel, we also can compare the actual cost with the allocated budget. We also can verify if our actual costs went over or under our budget. Let's see how we can do the same thing in our PeopleSoft Project Costing Module. In order to compare budget versus actual, I will navigate to Project Costing, Budgeting, Budget Plan. I will search Budget Plan for our project. As you can see here, we created budget plan for both cost as well as revenue in our previous episode. Using this prompt, we can always compare actual versus budgeted amount. I will start for cost budget. As you can see here, this is the remaining cost budget for our project. We can do the same comparison for any specific activity under a project. These are the actual costs for this specific activity. I can click on details and see individual transactions against this project activity. I will click return button and do the same for our revenue budget plan. The amount that our company will receive for the work done by our resources to our end client is nothing but revenue for our company. Now I'll show you how to post revenue entries into project costing accounting table. First, I just want to show you there is no accounting data sitting in accounting table for my project. Now let's go ahead and kick off the process that generates revenue accounting entries. I will navigate to customer contracts, schedule and process revenue, process as incurred revenue. I will quickly add a new run control and select our project specific criteria and kick off the process. As you can see, the process ran to success. If we query our accounting table again for our project ID, if you observe closely, you see two rows with revenue account and two rows with unbilled UAR account. Increase in revenue is denoted by a credit, which is represented by a negative sign in PeopleSoft. As per accounting, credits always should match with debits. Since we have revenue lines on the credit side, on the other side we should have debits, which in our case is represented by unbilled accounts receivables, because we are yet to send bill to our end customer target. If you are wondering where from these specific account numbers are fetched, let me show you the configuration that we did in our previous episode. We have defined this configuration on as incurred accounting distribution. For the bill analysis type, we ask the system to use the revenue account as 403902. Likewise, contract asset is nothing but unbilled UAR, and we ask the system to use 122009. That's how those accounting entries were populated. In our last task, we will post our revenue entries into ledger table in summarized format by running general generator process. At any point of time, we can see what is the total revenue generated by our project by querying ledger table, just like how you see in this Excel here. To create journal entries, I will navigate to General Ledger, Journals, Subsystem Journals, Generate Journal from Subsystem. I will select an existing run control. I'm going to edit and post our journal entries. Then I'll select appropriate accounting definition name and general template. And kick off the general generator process. After general generator ran to success, if we query the ledger table, we can see our summarized revenue information related to our project here. Even though I created just 2 transactions for this demo, there will be thousands of project costing transactions loaded daily into PeopleSoft Project Costing Module. Every day, total summarized revenue for our project will be updated in our ledger table. That's it for today. Don't forget to leave a like if you like my content and consider subscribing. Have a great day.